All right, I think we can get started now. So, welcome to the session. And I have the schedule uh, for people to go. So if you're not ready, let me know. I can push you back. And if people come in late, they can go kind of whenever they get here. I'm kind of hoping that we can get through this. You have 5 to 10 minutes to present, so don't feel rushed, but also don't go over 10 minutes because there are quite a few presentations today. So let's see.
You're supposed to go first. Can I just share my screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So my open source project that I want to work on is specifically on evaluating models that do code generation. So what am I trying to do? I'm specifically trying to expand language support for code evaluating code generation. And what I mean by that is there are current metrics such as Code Blue that evaluate code where you have the script that you want to have, the intended code, and then you have what the model auto completes. And you compare those to see how well they match semantically and syntactically. Semantic in this case means how intuitive and easy it is to understand the code, and syntactically means like how logically correct is it, like when you run it, is it accurate? It produces a score between 0 to 1, and it combines approaches like n-gram, abstract syntax trees, and data flow. N-gram is for measuring like how many successive or like large groups of words match. For both, it's more of a literal evaluation of how much the text matches. That was the original Blue score approach. However, with the new Code Blue metric, they have incorporated something called abstract syntax trees and data flow, which correspond to the code syntactics or the logic, as well as the code semantics, which is does it intuitively make sense. And as I said, it only supports there's only support for evaluating generation in Java, JavaScript, C Sharp, PHP, Go, Python, and Ruby. But there are a lot of other languages, such as like Solidity and Viper for smart contract, and many more. And I want to find a way to expand that language support where multiple languages can be evaluated when generated. And there are multiple routes to this. I'm not the most knowledgeable, but this is what a generic approach that I came up with, using a generalized model where you would pass it in training script of a particular language, of a new language, like multiple examples of that code in that language, and it'll generate a model that can evaluate and do comparison in that language. Or we can focus on language specific models. So basically implementing whatever they have in Java, JavaScript, PHP, etc., for specific languages. In terms of the generalized model translation without translation, one approach uses translation where you capitalize on whatever we already have with Java, JavaScript, C Sharp. And essentially, whatever new language you have, you work on translating it to one of those languages that are the most similar to it, and then use the existing code structure to generate the metric. And the other approach is completely generalized, where you won't really compare it to existing language support, and just create a general model that would just look at examples of the code, not translated to a supported language, and try to come up with the metric. And so more about why I want to do this. Well, some of my goals are to standardize a model for evaluating code, because that can really take the burden off evaluators and people that want to measure, how accurate code is. You won't have to hire people to constantly look through a bunch of examples of code, because you're ensuring that this model has some reliability. And then, as I said, I want to support code evaluation in all possible languages, not just restrict. Um, Also, the overall purpose is making code generation more reliable. Code generation can really streamline the development processes for various companies and startups, and people can spend more time planning and designing software and models rather than coding it. So, if we can create the standardized model for evaluation, we can make code generation more reliable as a whole, and code generation can become a more common industry practice for being efficient. And why is this particular project good for open source? The first reason is wide applicability. NLP projects in general have wide applicability and can be applied across various different industries, um, including speech recognition, sentiment analysis, machine translation. And so the general nature of NLP projects are widely applicable. And NLP projects also have a large community of developers and researchers, and you can get all of their expertise, feedback, and contributions. It's hard to, pick a few particular experts in a small team to do this kind of work when you could get expertise around the world. And there's easier access and sharing of data. NLP tends to be very data driven because you're constantly training on new data. And it's hard to get data from like just one or like a few people. But if you have, worldwide contribution or even national contribution, you can get a lot and a lot more data. And then NLP is a rapidly evolving field, so it's important to keep up with the innovation and keep updating the code base. So that is also one of the reasons why it's good for open source. And then a final reason is the social impact. NLP projects can have a significant impact on society by enabling more effective communication and understanding across languages and cultures, improving accessibility for people with disabilities, and facilitating more efficient and accurate information processing. So combining all those reasons, I think it would be a good project to do open source with. So in terms of target audience and target contributors, so for audience, like who would this type of technology be useful for? Tech companies with any sort of tech or IT department. As I mentioned, code generation is something that can really, really reduce the time spent on, actually coding, and more planning development or designing things, and make a more efficient use of time. Startups and services that specifically create models or tools for auto completing code, they have something that they can use to validate the accuracy of their models and tools. And it'll also could serve as an industry standard for measuring how well a service or a tool is performing, as well as developers who just want to auto generate code. Um, the target contributors, there are a lot, because again, NLP is a broad field and you need various types of experts, researchers, linguists, applied scientists that have experience with NLP, and then people that have used Code Blue, right? We want to have good knowledge management because we're building off of Code Blue. So people that have used and worked with Code Blue, people that are working on code translation, if you want to use the generalized model approach where we convert a new language to a similar language that already has implementation with Code Blue. And then people contributing to Hugging Face, that's a huge community for people that are dealing with NLP. MLEs and data scientists for testing and evaluating stuff, because once you have something, you have to make sure it works. And of course, because the existing implementations are in Java, Python, etc., you want developers in those. But you also want developers in new languages who could test out this approach for new languages. In terms of strategy, with regards to the license, I know the MIT license is pretty common one that's used, and I think it's good for this one because it's permissive and allows users to modify, distribute, and use the software, including for commercial purposes. It's simple, it's compatible, and it has great protection. And in terms of code access for strategy, I want to have code publicly available on GitHubs. I'm still debating on how, who, like, or like what it would take to become a contributor, or would I make it completely voluntary? But to prevent, random code from getting onto the GitHub, we'll have a branch for each specific work stream. And for each parent or work stream branch, we'll have sub branches. And each sub branch will be maybe a user or a group of users that want to contribute that to that particular work stream. And you would do pull requests to the parent branches, followed by pull requests to the main branch, where you would get the final code. For community events and communication, for communication, I would like to use Discord and have a bunch of channels, a channel for each work stream, a channel for people that are researching and trying to decide like approaches, a channel for managers of each work stream, as well as a voice or video channel for troubleshooting, getting assistance. And Discord has a feature where you can assign experts versus non-experts, and that can be helpful if you want to reach out to specific people. And then for community events, I kind of did it by phases. Some of the phases kind of happen, at the same time, interland. They keep like flip flopping. But the very first and most important phase is deciding the approach. And honestly, I'm not knowledgeable enough to decide an approach. So it would involve a lot of discussion over maybe a couple of months with a lot of NLP developers and experts who know this, on the back of their hand, and can help, vote and decide on the best approach. And then comes implementation and valuation, and those kind of keep happening in a cycle. The implementation meetings, you'll have weekly meetings for communities involved in each work stream, and those are pretty much voluntary. And then you have weekly meetings for managers of each work stream with the head tech lead and PMs to discuss, what code they want to retain and what are the progress of the various sub communities within their work stream. And then for evaluation, it will be with a lot of the data scientists and MLEs, weekly meetings to see how the code is performing and what we want to retain in the main branch. In terms of sustainability, everything will be implemented in Python, as it's best for ML and NLP based applications. And to make sure that things are structured, I'll be assigning a lot of managers at various work streams and head managers that will control pull requests and host weekly meetings. And if weekly is not possible, some other sort of consistent schedule. Yep, that would be it. Any questions?
Yeah, any questions for Kushi? Um, Go ahead if we have any questions. Okay. Well, I guess I have a comment or two. So I'm glad that you covered a lot of the things that you covered, because those are, I think it's a very complete assessment of the project. I think, keep in mind that with rapidly evolving fields, like you mentioned with NLP, that you have a lot of challenges, and that, there has to be this aspect of flexibility. So, some of it is like, expertise comes and goes. Sometimes you need new expertise as the field changes. I'm glad that you mentioned Hugging Face, because that's a very good resource for like machine learning and NLP, where it can help you with things. And it's a good place to host a lot of that, because there's a community around that. It's sort of like a meta community. Yeah, so I think that's good. I think knowledge management is a good way to deal with sort of the variation that you're going to find around all this rapid change, technological change. So very good. And thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. I can't, I'm having trouble sharing my screen, so I'll come up. I have an order for everyone. So Kushi has presented. Next up is Roy. Is Roy here? I think Roy may have gone
Yeah, I'm here.
yesterday. Oh, okay.
Okay. I'll just share my screen real quick. Okay, is that visible?
Yes.
So let's get started. So I'm Roy. I'll be presenting on my proposal for an open source platform that is focused on connecting students and RSOs. Uh, my project is focused on our campus, but it being an open source platform, the idea is that this project could be replicated in other environments, like other communities and colleges as well. This is my table of contents. This is how
Oh, I
uh,
think your project's still loading, or the at least in the screen share.
do you want me to go back or something?
Yeah, yeah. See if you can do like just the slide deck. Not
Like without presenting?
yeah, yeah, because I think it might be having a problem here. There we go.
Is it,
You
is
can
it
see
good
it
now?
now. Yeah, yeah.
Um, so, like I was saying, this is how my table of contents is broken down. So I'll jump right into it. The issue that I will be focusing on in this presentation is the gap between students and registered student organizations on campus or RSOs. Um, so there are approximately 50,000 students on our campus and over 8,000 registered student organizations. Due to this, students can have a really hard time trying to connect and find an RSO that they feel they can connect to or they have similar interests with. Students can also be overwhelmed with the sheer number of options they have available to them and simply like may not be able to pick one that they think is right for them. Um, Niche RSOs that have very niche hobbies or interests can also have a difficult time recruiting members and reaching out to students that might uh, reciprocate that similar interest and might want to join the RSO. And RSOs can also struggle to keep membership and active participation in organization due to it being a niche RSO and having enough people with um, interest in it. My solution to is to bridge this gap between students and organizations by creating a web page that can connect RSOs and students by aligning similar interests and goals through a questionnaire that can be filled out upon the creation of the account. This would also allow for the campus to build a community on the web page that essentially allows RSOs and students to seamlessly communicate with each other on a basis of joining a club. Um, this webpage will also allow this community to grow because the platform will be used to not only communicate between RSOs and students, but also for RSOs to post any upcoming events or meetings that they have, so they can have students who are interested attend them. So the target audience for my project will be mostly students and RSOs, students who are looking to join an RSO and have been having a hard time finding an RSO they feel that they can connect to and have similar interests with, and also students who simply don't know where to start due to the sheer number of RSOs that are available. Like even browsing the RSO website is very confusing at times, and trying to find the right one can be difficult. The other part of the group will be RSOs who are looking to add students into their club. These are RSOs that want to like increase their presence among students through this platform and also reach out to students all across campus and see if their hobbies align with the interests of the students that they're trying to reach. So why is open source a good idea for this project? Well, one of the primary factors for choosing open source for a project like this is simply because it allows a lot of different collaborators to be constantly working on the project, which can make development costs lower, but also allow for any like flaws and large problems to be easily tackled. Open source also allows the code to be transparent and for students who are worried about any security aspects of the web page can easily look up the code and like figure out if like the web page is viable or not. Also, making an open source community allows for other schools and communities to replicate a similar platform that can help them jumpstart a similar one at their own within their own community or school. Since this problem is not local to just U of I and also present in other large schools and communities. So the good and the bad with open source, like I said, the good is the transparency due to the platform being an open source platform. It allows easy accessible to the code as opposed to a closed source platform, which would make it difficult for students and collaborators to access the code and alter them as necessary. Open source also allows for the platform to be more cost effective. Since there's a lot of people working on it, it lowers the cost for everybody and makes it more readily accessible for most of the students using it. The bad is that making it open source can sometimes make it easy for people to implement bad code or cause problems within the platform that could potentially affect the students or also shut down the platform. Making it open source can also cause a divide between people contributing because there can be a lot of collaborators that are not on the same page while they're pushing their progress and could cause problems during the development phase. The conclusion for my project is that the platform has the ability to be one that benefits a lot of students and their college careers by allowing them to seamlessly connect to RSOs and not having to having to individually go to each club and talk to them as they're trying to figure out if that's the one they are interested in joining. This platform could also be used widely among thousands of students and easily be replicated in other schools, and also allow it to be constantly developed and worked on as students and collaborators work to make it better.
Thank you, Roy. So, yeah, I had a couple of comments. Did anyone else have any questions before I make my comments? Okay, yeah. So, I mean, the pros and cons are great. I might flesh out a few of those. Like, for example, if you have a strategy for, when you have issues with contributors and things like that, just to make sure that you have a plan going forward for especially some of the cons, but also some of the pros. How would you leverage those pros more effectively? And then the other thing is about, I think licensing is important, like picking an open source license, especially if you're going to distribute it to other RSOs around the country, because you have different universities have different rules, they have different setups for things, but you still have this you still want to make sure that people don't use it in ways you don't want them to use it. You want to have some sort of control over how it's used and how it gets contributed to. So that's definitely, I mean, otherwise it's a great way to kind of think about this problem and address a problem that's existing. Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right, no problem. All right. Next up is Ria.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Okay. I can see your screen.
So I'm going to be presenting about Note Talk today. So currently the problem with audio transcription or speech to text solutions is that it's difficult to write detailed meeting notes and utilize that software um, uh, while you're like paying attention in the meeting. Like if you're in a Zoom meeting and you're trying to pay attention to the lecture and also write your lecture notes, it's quite difficult to multitask, and it also takes up a lot of energy to do multiple things at once and make sure everything is accurate. And currently, the speech to text solutions are more focused, like Otter AI, are more focused on audio, recorded audio files, where you give uh, the technology a recorded audio file, and then it would understand that, look through that using its model, and then transcribe it into notes. Um, but there are not that many efficient tools that do it in real time. So my solution is NoteTalk, which is an open source AI tool that transcribes the meeting notes and provides action items in real time using AI models as well as NLP. And so how it works is like if you're in a meeting, there'd be an extension, and you click on the extension, and it would listen to the audio and tell you how many people are speaking, and from there, it listens to audio and utilize NLP and AI to differentiate the the notes, so differentiate the text, the speech, uh, between meeting notes and action items that need to be done, or tasks that need to be done. So the target audience are corporate professionals, students, teachers, and honestly anyone that's utilizing online meeting softwares um, and is interested in taking notes at the same time. So 3 principles I'm going to focus on are open collaboration, open data, and sustainability. So for us, open collaboration, it's really important to utilize the agile methodology and have monthly and weekly sprints to make sure that all the contributors are on top of the project, as well as understanding the latest updates and are pushing the latest updates in a timely manner. And in terms of knowledge management, documentation is also very important when you have open collaboration. Each contributor and collaborator should be aware about the latest updates and what's going on. So the README will constantly be updated. There also will be notes about more detailed, like one pagers that would describe the latest updates, what tasks they did, why they did, what's the technology that they use, and the tech stack. So if other contributors want to help out and work on that sort of on a certain feature of NoteTalk, they can. And also with all of this, reducing the technical debt is super important. So in combination with the agile methodology, the sprints, and documentation, we can reduce the technical debt and make sure that there are less issues that arise as we are constantly developing and pushing out code and testing things. So it's more about pushing out things, testing them, and then reiterating instead of just waiting at the end to test. Which leads to more issues and you can't fix them on time. Second thing, open data. So since the NoteTalk does look at, does listen to real-time audio, it's simple and can potentially collect data about the data for the meetings. It's important that we're transparent with whatever data is being collected, how it's being collected, and what the process is like. And if someone doesn't want the data to be recorded and stored, then we'll ask for consent first, informed consent before anything else. And if they don't want it to be recorded, then we can look. I can look into other alternative methods, maybe a transcript from the Zoom meeting that we can utilize, or something like that, instead of the real time data. And also, since we are recording potential sensitive information. If someone wants access to that data, if a contributor wants access to the data to uh, further develop code, whatever it is, they need to request access to the data first. It won't be openly available on the GitHub or other storage methods that we'll use. So they'll have to request access and provide a very specific purpose and have a specific use case for that data. And third, sustainability. So to make sure that this project is consistent and is sustains over a long period of time. First, we'd use Whisper AI and Python to build it. Whisper AI is open source um, speech to text AI from OpenAI. So that will help, and that's constantly getting updated as the technology is being updated. So we constantly be updating our technology and making sure that we have the latest updates while coding. And second, we'd have project leads and work stream leads. So the project leads would be, for example, like 2 project leads that would have be overseeing the overall project when it comes to collaborators, maintenance, updates, any new work streams, stuff like that. And the work stream leads will be managing their specific work streams and making sure that the team members and collaborators that they're working with are doing the work on time. And if there's any issues, all the leads and leadership can work together. And also there'll be monthly meetings. These won't and weekly meetings. So for the weekly meetings, there'd be like for the work stream teams, they would be weekly, and the monthly meetings would be to develop the community, and they wouldn't be mandatory, but that would just help with knowledge management and making sure everyone is aware about the latest updates and what's going on with No Talk in terms of technology issues, etc. And also to sustain this whole project, we need an active community. So we'd have active community on Discord as well as GitHub and other forums to develop the community and make sure that everyone is in the loop about the latest updates and where the project is going. And finally, for licensing, based on my research, I think using Apache 2.0 and OpenRail would be good. Be good licenses to have. So for Apache 2.0, this will help us get legal protection, and it will also help us provide credibility, so companies feel more safe and secure about utilizing No Talk, and are less likely to be worried about where the data is going, how is the data being handled, etc. And it can be also then distributed to companies, schools, and others. And also, OpenRail is a good license because it makes sure that we have a response. There's a responsible use and distribution of No Talk, so that not anyone can just utilize the code. Not everyone can just utilize the code and change the code to, I guess, like, abuse the technology that we're creating. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ria. It's very good. Any questions or comments? Okay. Yeah. So I think it's a great project, and I like the way you dealt with technical debt on the one hand, and then you kind of gave some solutions to that, but also talked about some of the challenges of working with like an open AI type model, and how that would happen, licensing regime, for example, and utilizing the community. So I think that's great. This is like the first presentation where someone brought up technical debt, so that's great. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Ethan. I also had a request for 2 people who wanted to present after the session. So if you're one of those people, please stick around after we're done, and then we'll do the presentations.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm EJ, and my project idea is implementing open source management into the game development process. And so the purpose for my project was to just overall combine my passions of coding and playing video games. And I really wanted to gain new experience and learn something new while starting like a possible new career path. And obviously take advantage of open source resources and finally create a video game. So my target audience, obviously gamers, people who play video games, but more specifically indie gamers, who are people that play video games that are mostly made by individuals or less popular studios. And to I had to you want to choose like a certain console to start off with, so I would choose Xbox. So a target audience would be Xbox players, and that's just the console that I'm most familiar with. So really the first step for making this an open source project is to choose a game engine that will support open source features. So after doing some research, I decided to go with Unity, and I think this is really going to help build the foundation for making this an open source video game. Specifically, Unity has this asset store where all the Unity developers can import their artwork and code into here and either make it free or able to purchase. So here are just some of the free ones up there. So you really get to take advantage of using other people's help and using what they've made. And then the next step is license. So luckily with Unity, they come with some options for getting licensed for your game. So I would choose Unity Personal just because this is a free option and they do offer help specifically for students too. And it's basically just to help you own the content you create. But then I also choose an additional third-party license, the GNU General Public License. And this will just require that anyone that wants to redistribute or modify anything that I make has to do it under the terms and conditions of the license. The next step is building a community. So luckily, there's a giant gaming community out there already. And there's also specifically indie development gaming community that is really big and is getting bigger recently. So they actually already have a pretty big Reddit for indie dev with 160K members. So I would want to become an active member of this Reddit just to create connections and see what other people are doing with the same passions as me. And eventually probably like to make my own Reddit page for people that are interested in my game and maybe some other developers that would be interested in helping out with my game. And overall, you can just get feedback from posting clips of gameplay and stuff like that. And yeah, in conclusion, I think that open source is definitely the path to get the best video game I can out there with the support of the giant gaming and indie dev community, the open source software out there already, and the support of other developers. And I think I might have accidentally skipped one slide, so I'll do that real quick. So for managing the code for this project, obviously GitHub is a great open source resource out there. So I have a public repository that I can store all the code files, and this would be public to view, so anyone can view and download it. However, it wouldn't let just any developer make changes to the main Git. But in the future, if I do want to add other developers, then they would be able to update and make requests. And GitHub will also help me implement updates, because when making game, new updates and bug fixes are very important. And lastly, all the code will be done in C++. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you. So yeah, that's any questions or comments from anyone? Yeah, again, this is good. And again, you're relying on that sort of meta community to work with. So there's already an existing community, so that should be helpful. And then Unity is a nice platform, so it's an existing technology you can build on. So great, thank you. Next is Sri. Are you ready?
Yeah, let me just share my screen.
All right.
Okay, can you see
Okay.
it?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to be talking about my idea, which is called skincare, which I'll explain in a little bit. So, my goals for this open source platform is to create a space where people can discuss their experience with skincare products, create an open source platform that is easily accessible and understandable to everyone, and then foster an inclusive community. So why? So skincare is a big and upcoming industry, but products affect everyone differently with it. So and there's so many parts to it. And as of right now, people only discuss their experiences on social media, but there is no universal platform where people can like collaborate and learn. And because it's so trending right now, I feel like this would be a really good thing to implement that people could use. So some of the platform tools that I want to talk about is I'm thinking about modeling it after Reddit or Discord. So as you can see, I have a little snippet of Discord on the side. So you can have different sections based on like skincare concerns, skincare type, popular skincare brands, and like trending on social media. And then sorry. Then I also want to have a section dedicated to mental health because a big part of like skincare is like people dealing with their insecurities and things like that. So maybe create like a forum where people can just like support each other and know that it's like all okay. And in the future, I want to think about adding like chatbots or like artificial intelligence features to help like determine your actual like skin issue and just more things to like talk to the chatbot with. So timeline is like maybe within 6 months, you would reach out to like small groups of people to that are passionate about skincare to like, just create a Discord and get it up and going. Then maybe after like 1 year to the project, advertise heavily on social media to get interest from like all different sorts of people, so you can actually like build up your you can just like build up the people interested in it. And then 1.5 to 2 years move to a more professional interface, maybe like a website ish, an open source website, and implement like the chatbots I was talking about and all those features. And then ongoing, maybe partner with like companies and or get endorsements from licensed skincare professionals where they can like give in their input and just like make all the information that's going on in this like open source be like more trustworthy and like credible. And then so the working open and like community aspects of this is there's like free distribution and licensing. There's no fees or restrictions, so everyone can like modify, use, and distribute the information that's going on. And then it's collaborative and community driven, so everyone essentially shares their knowledge and decisions. And like if they want to like improve or anything, all the decisions should be made by the community considering everyone and what they kind of want out of this. And then also continuous improvement, like I was talking about, new features can be continuously added, such as AI, to improve the experience and like keep updating the content so it's like relevant to like all the new products that are coming out. And then so yeah, that's pretty much it. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That was very good. I don't know if you had any questions or comments, but yeah, I think you hit all the points. I would think a little bit more about the specific license for the paper. So
Hmm.
you don't want to just leave it up to anyone to do whatever they want. It's like you want to have some
Yeah.
conditions, and maybe in a community like this, you might consider a code of conduct where you have specific rules for sort of the values of the community and the what the sort of the terms are. If people violate them, they can be banned from the community or they get some disciplinary action, because it's easy to talk about communities as these well-oiled machines, but oftentimes you have a lot of conflict to deal with. So
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you.
all right, thank you. Okay, next, I believe we're going to have Aliyah Afif. So are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right, go ahead and share your screen.
Awesome. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so my project is to focus on food waste elimination. And So the main reason why is that 30 to 40% of our total food supply is wasted every year. That's billions of pounds of consumable food waste every year. And actually, grocery stores and retail sources are about 30% of that food waste, which is still billions of pounds of consumable food wasted. And something that I would like to do is connect food banks with grocery stores that have excess produce in order to help fulfill the needs of food banks that have been experiencing shortages as a result of supply chain issues and inflation as more families have started using those resources. So, some of the goals of my project are to create an open source and accessible platform to connect grocery stores with excess product and food pantries with a lack of donations. So, I want to make sure to manage the project using working open principles and use open source principles. And most importantly, to eliminate food waste and help nurture a more collaborative and supportive community. I want to focus on connecting local grocers with local food pantries just to create more of a collaborative relationship in local areas. So, some of the tools I would like to implement on my platform is kind of a similar structure to a wedding or a shower registry website where each individual food pantry can create a individual page with a requested list of items, and grocers, a variety of grocers can assign themselves to fulfill their request, either providing all of the items requested or only select items requested. So, in a sense, it'll be kind of a matching service. So, something that I would also like to implement is a tagging function to improve the searchability of the list. If grocers have specific things in excess, then they can add certain, they can look for certain products that are needed at different food pantries or also for location tags. So that way we can use a filter function. So searches can be focused regionally, connecting again the local grocers to the local pantries. So I have it set up in about 4 phases. For the first 6 months, I would like to reach out to potential collaborators for platform development, beginning a Discord server to serve as the centralized hub for communication, creating specific channels to organize discussions surrounding particular issues related to platform creation. In the next 6 months, I would like to create a database of local and regional grocery stores and food pantries to inquire about potentially piloting the program. I'd like to focus the initial phases of the platform on a local only platform. That way, we can work out any of the potential issues or errors. So, we would develop a platform only with the essential features in place in order to help pitch the platform to potential collaborators and to other local grocers and food pantries. So, in the 6 months after that, we would hopefully build out the platform more to include different features to support the implementation of it nationwide if possible. And we would also be able to react and adapt to any of the issues faced in the pilot program. And all the meanwhile, we'd like to be consistently pushing out updates to the platform in order to maintain the platform's utility and relevance, as well as to have weekly check ins with collaborators on Discord and monthly video conferences with collaborators. So, in terms of working open and community building, in terms of the community, we want the source code to be publicly available, and we'll host the source code on a GitHub repository, which will allow all of our collaborators and potentially interested parties to have access to the source code. In terms of licensing, we use an MIT license, so that way we have a flexible and dynamic copyright, which allows us some element of restriction while also letting others build off of our platform and our work as deemed necessary. And in terms of continuity, I think open source is a good idea for this project because of the evolving nature of different collaborators. It helps ensure the platform's longevity and relevancy. Additionally, open source is a good idea because it encourages a diverse array of collaborators to interact with the project, bringing many different perspectives and skills to the development of the project. And in terms of developing the project nationwide, open source is also a good idea because working open allows for us to create a base level platform for others to expand off of. So That's all I have. Any questions?
Any questions or comments? Yeah, that's good. Thank you. And I'm glad that you focused on the roadmap and sort of this issue of continuity of the project. So those are good points to stress in your final paper. And having that sort of view of out, 1 or 2 years, making plans along the way. That's good.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next is Dara. Are you ready?
Yes, one sec. Let me just
All
reset.
right. There you go. Thank you.
Okay. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay. So this is my project centered around like creating a syllabus resource center. So basically, a lot of us are familiar with the iSchool box folder, which contains a lot of syllabuses, all the syllabuses of the current term. And a lot of us are familiar with the UIUC grade disparity site. And for those of you who aren't, it essentially gives you the historical GPA of like specific sections. So for example, next semester, or it might take a year, but for example, people will access the information for this class and say, oh, like the average GPA of this class is a 3.7 or something with specifically Professor Bradley. And then if there was another professor also teaching this class, it would give their GPA for that section. So like I think a lot of us have had different professors for 203. You would see different GPAs, and then that could help you pick which professor you want for when you're registering for classes. A lot of us also just ask their community for information about classes we've taken in the past. So I've asked people about like this class, for example. Others have asked me about this class, things like that. But there are issues with these solutions. So asking your community can be difficult to access, especially if like you're a freshman or you're someone who's taking IS classes in order to attain an IS minor or anything like that. And then with the iSchool box folder, only IS majors can access that. So even if you're a declared minor, I think you might not be able to access that. Or a lot of people wait to declare their minor. And so up until they declare their minor, they might not be able to access that either. And then the grade disparity site is often out of date or just lacks information, especially for newer classes. Frankly, a lot of the IS classes like last year weren't on it, or the year before they weren't on it because they're brand new. I mean, for undergraduates, they're brand new. So after thinking about these problems and reflecting on my own experiences when registering for classes, I decided to like see if I can maybe combine these. And so adding up community comments, grade disparity, and syllabi into a solution that lets students make the most informed decisions about their classes. And that means that like ideally the project centers around combining all three of these. It would be an open source project, as the code for the project website will be posted onto GitHub, and it would be protected by a copyleft license. This is not set in stone, but for example, one of them that I was considering is the GNU General Public License, the 3.0 version, which allows for remixing and repurposing. It also allows for commercial and private use. So potentially, if this project develops well enough, other colleges, even private colleges, can use this. And it also allows for private use. So if another student wants to create this version for another university, they can do that as well. It also requires you to disclose where your source code came from, what it is, and then also like copyright license notices. So that's why I picked this one. But again, this one's not set in stone. Anything similar to this is an avenue I might still explore. The community for this would be iSchool students, professors, IS minors, or those who are just taking IS classes. Students can boost their portfolios and resumes. They can practice their skills, and they can help their community, which is an incentive for them to participate. For professors, it connects them with the community, and it kind of incentivizes students to do extracurricular work that could help them perform better in classes. And then students, another benefit, they could potentially ask for extra credit or credit hours, depending on the level of their contributions. They would have to individually ask for that, but every so often, we can provide them with talking points if they want to ask for it, especially if it's a technical course where they would be practicing the skills that they're learning in class. But that's not guaranteed, so we wouldn't advertise that. But if anyone came to us, we could help them potentially earn that benefit. And then for users, it would be iSchool students, IS minors, and then those who want to take IS classes. So you can see that there's a lot of overlap between the community and the users, which is good. It means that the community has a vested interest in helping the project because they are also the users. For onboarding, initially this will be done on a smaller, more individual scale, but I'm hoping that once it's established, the project website will have a contributor page, which would have things like the benefits of contributing, which I just went over, a guidance tree, which I'll go over soon, the link to join the Slack, which is the method of communication, a leaderboard, which I'll get into again, and then a link to the GitHub so you can see the issue tree, vocabulary control, the schedule, etc. Here's the example of the guidance tree. This is very rudimentary, so we can just see like, do you know how to program? Yes, no, and then it will it'll direct contributors to what they can actually help with. So even if you don't know how to program at all, you can still help through communicating with faculty and staff or just reviewing work. And then a way to incentivize contributors. This is the leaderboard I was talking about, but there will also be badges. So we can advertise benefits through a benefits section on the site, and we'll also provide talking points for personal requests for extra credit, like I mentioned earlier. But we'll also do some gamification, so there's potential to earn badges, and you can display these badges or mention them on your resume, your portfolio when you're talking about the work you've done on this project. And then the badges will come in levels. So, for example, there will be technical and non-technical badges. This is an example of a non-technical badge where it's just a communicator badge, which you can earn through solving issues. It'll be connected to the GitHub issue board. But you can earn first the beginner, then the intermediate, then the expert. And then it will tie into the leaderboard hosted on the site, which is updated monthly. So whoever contributes the most that month, not just by earning badges, but just through solving through the issue board, you'll be at the top of that leaderboard. So it's kind of a way to compete, but in a very friendly way. Communication, we'll be using Slack. Public channels will include like the general channel for updates, new member for onboarding questions or communications, and then a programming channel for coding related questions and resource sharing. And then the private channel, so far I can only think of one. This is open to being changed later, but it's a leadership channel. So this will be private because sometimes there's things that the public it's not efficient for everyone to hear about and like be able to comment on. And then other times it could be a problem about a specific contributor or a security concern that it's not best for all contributors to know about. And then we'll also be utilizing bots to answer common questions or direct contributors to resources that relate to their questions. Life cycle and sustainability. So there will be semesterly updates to upload syllabi, which coincides with the academic year. Contributors are most required when setting up the site, but fewer will be needed for updates. And then a major update is needed when classes are revealed for the next semester, which happens around March-ish. This will require contributors to set up a new semester page. And we'll use old syllabi as placeholders temporarily, especially if the same professor is teaching the same section. If not, we'll just say that this syllabus will come soon. And then we'll source updated syllabi from students, professors, and the iSchool box folder as soon as it's updated. Because of the issues with box folder being sometimes out of date, we'll just mention that like this could be out of date, and then that's where the communication badge comes in by reaching out to professors and things like that to get updated syllabi. And then another major update will be needed during the first week of classes where students will receive syllabi from their professors. So we can just update what we've got or just make sure that what we've got is the same as what professors have been giving to their students. And then here's an example of what's expected to be the contributions over time. We'll see that there's spikes in March and October, which is when classes are revealed for the next semester. And then there's spikes in January and August, which is the first week of classes where syllabuses will be checked and updated. And then for platform and languages, we'll be ideally using the UIUC cPanel web hosting service. It's just a free service for UIUC students to be able to host websites for free. And it allows for transfership of ownership, which is really nice. Transferring of ownership, which is really nice because people graduate or they just quit. So it'll be pretty easy to just keep that going if someone graduates with this. And then for languages, we'll be using HTML, CSS, and Python. Differently experienced contributors can still contribute depending on like if they only know one of the three languages. All three are pretty widely known and still relevant. So contributors can practice skills, and it's easier to market to companies when they're job hunting by saying, "Oh, I used Python when I created this website," or "I helped create this," or anything like that. And pretty importantly, there's resources available if things go wrong. And then as language updates are released, the code will be updated, and this is up to the update manager to oversee. For permissions and access, the leadership will co-own the site. For the roles, program manager will be the owner of the site in charge of communications and monitoring other roles. The update manager is in charge of semesterly updates and the site being up to date. And then the lead programmers inside of site development, troubleshooting code, etc. And the fact checker ensures accuracy of syllabi and resources. And more roles can be added as necessary. I can see a communication role being added later if the project gets bigger. For future work, we could potentially incorporate a course planner, which is really cool, or a degree audit. So it can help direct students who use the site to see what classes they still need to take, depending on what classes they have taken. And then we could also expand beyond the iSchool. Other colleges also need a resource like this, but it would be great if we could do that. Structure, we may need to create more roles, like the communications manager that I mentioned earlier. And then the timeline, we could change it to include summer and winter terms. I didn't include that yet because it seems like I want to take small steps before creating goals that might burn us out. And it's easier to catch mistakes when you have smaller goals, I guess. But in the future, I would love if summer and winter terms were also included. And then here are my references.
Very good. Thank you. Did we have any comments or questions for Dara? Okay, yeah, that's great. Thank you. I also liked how you predicted sort of where your contributors are going to come in during the year, and then that can be used to plan out because you do need people at certain times of the year to be contributing. So I think that's great. Thank you. Next is Subin. Subin here. Okay, I don't think Subin is here. We can move on to Zara if you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'll share my
All right.
screen.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So, hi everyone. This is my open source project, which is going to be a makeup dupes app. Okay. So I'll go into the introduction, then the target audience, then my strategy, and then the community. So what the problem here is that some makeup products are very expensive, but nonetheless you want it, right? Or at least you want something similar. So you need like a dupe, which is a dupe of the very expensive product, but it works the same or very similarly, and that's where my app comes to play. So my solution to this problem is to create an application or website for makeup fanatics who are looking for these dupes, so people can come together and create an app and add their own knowledge to it. And for this, I would use GitHub. So the purpose of this is for people to find like alternatives to their favorite products. Also find like cheaper versions of their favorite products. So as you can see on the picture on the left, so that's what like a dupe is. So there's like a $31 concealer and then a $7 one, but they work the same. And then we would also have a forum where people can talk about like their experiences with these products. So the target audience for this open source project could be makeup artists because they obviously have some of the most experience and knowledge that they would bring to the table, but also just anyone who's interested or looking for cheaper alternatives to expensive products. So anyone is just free to join. And like I said, we would create this open source community on GitHub, and we would also like create data sets to find certain copycats. So some products, makeup products, have similar ingredients, and if we could just like look through those ingredients and find products that have like the same ingredients but have different costs or are from like a different brand, then we would like put these together and you know and then anyone can access or make changes to this. So why open source? Well, there's a lot of reasons to use open source for this type of project, but some of the reasons are that it would allow different collaborators, and that's really important, especially in the makeup community, because there's millions of products out there, and it's important to get a lot of different people with different products to contribute to this community. Also, we would use open source because there's free distribution, which would be really great. And then also you can keep updating as new products come out because there's always new products coming out. And as for the community, we could have monthly meetings where we can assign people certain products or certain parts to work on. And as for sustainability, we would have an active community and forums like on Discord where people could talk about the products and just talk to each other. And then also we would have a code of conduct for the community since anyone can just edit and um, add stuff to the community. And yeah, that's it. How do I stop sharing? Oh, here.
Thank you, Zara. Do we have any comments or questions? Yeah, it was very good. I like that you were able to sort of define the problem and then find things like data sets to identify copycats and do things like that and then leverage a community towards that end. So definitely, there may be some, I don't know what kind of licensing issues you have, but I think you did a good job of presenting a lot of the things and some of the paper, you would go into more detail about some of the challenges, especially long term. But that's good. Thank you. Next up, we have Devang. Are you here?
Yep, I am.
All right. Go ahead and share your screen.
All right, one sec. Can you guys hear me fine, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. You'll see that?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, so something I've been getting involved in recently is music and music production. So for that reason, I decided to write my paper on like a hypothetical virtual studio technology or a VST. So I'll start with some background on VSTs. Recording music and modifying it used to require expensive like hardware to create the effects and sounds that musicians and producers wanted. But as technology progressed, recording became more dependent on computers. So a company called Steinberg Media Technologies created the VST to assist producers who relied on computers and like digital audio workstations, which is that picture in the top right, to like create and put together like music. And the VSTs are just like plugins that simulate effects and instruments that producers might want to put in their songs. So, with the introduction of VSTs, the demand for that expensive hardware went down because the software for VSTs is like relatively low in the cost. But unfortunately, this can still be a problem for those who just can't afford VSTs. There's some that are still like over $200, and that can be like a barrier to entry for aspiring producers, musicians, and those who are just like curious about the hobby. Um, so the goal of Wavecraft, which is what the project is called, is to develop like a free, high quality, open source VST for digital audio workstations, and the management for this project would be guided by like principles of openness, collaboration, and innovation. And hopefully, by doing all this, like the team of the project would aim to create a platform that would foster like experimentation and exchange of ideas, and like all in the hopes of supporting musicians, producers, and developers alike. So more on the target audience. It's designed with like a diverse audience in mind. I say diverse, but they all have like a common interest in music in some way. So some examples of people who might be interested in the project are independent musicians, producers, or just like sound designers who might be seeking cheap options for making music or like instruments. Another like part of the audience is teachers who might be teaching to students that are like getting into the hobby or as a profession. Um, and I guess like for people that just want to work on something as well, there could it could be software developers or just music technology enthusiasts. So one of the principles I mentioned earlier that would guide the development and management of Wavecraft is openness. And to aid in that, the plan would be to use GitHub as like the version control platform for the code. And this would allow people to easily access the source code, for whoever's seeking a project to work on. It would also allow it like easy access to the documentation, like manuals and guides for the people who want to build on the project or just use it as well. And at the same time, GitHub would allow for transparency and like the changes and updates that are made to the source code. So another principle for Wavecraft is collaboration. And the plan for this is to implement like a collaborative development model that would encourage like contribution from the developers in our target audience. And to facilitate that, we'd use GitHub's pull request system and just have code reviews for whatever is submitted. And at the same time, we would establish communication channels for discussion and exchange of new ideas. And this could be through a subreddit or like a server on Discord where developers can meet on a voice channel and just talk, or through the text channels, discuss as well. Another tenet of working on Wavecraft is innovation, because there are already a lot of VSTs that are out there that are free and open source, but um, yeah, sorry. So like that would be a reason why innovation is important, because there has to be something that distinguishes Wavecraft from any other VST. So um, like the plan for that would be to conduct tests for features that other VSTs might not have, and see which ones work and which ones don't. Uh, and another thing is to like just seek general feedback from people that are using the VSTs. So this kind of seeps into the later part of my presentation, but another way to innovate on the project is to host hackathon-like events for developers where they can, you know, create new features or just work with the source code in like a compact amount of time. What happened there? So as far as the sorry. So as far as the tech stack goes, I'm not too well versed in developing something like this, but I think just based on my past experience, we would use C++ just because it's compatible with like a lot of different operating systems, as well as the fact that it's good for managing like memory and just the performance capabilities of it. Um, and this VSTs require some kind of user interface, so we would obviously just want to use something that works well with C++. Um, and the backbone of like any VST is Steinberg's VST software development kit, as they kind of like pioneered that. Um, so that would handle all like the digital signal processing work that would be needed to make the VST work. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, Git would be like used to ensure the ease and collaboration, as well as like management and version control of the code. So for the community, while the project might be like up and running, it's vital to keep that sustained by having a community that loves using the product, and as well as like just working on it. So we plan on like doing various things to make sure that the community is looked out for, while also kind of building an image. So one thing is having an online presence by creating and maintaining a website for Wavecraft, and that website would kind of just show what Wavecraft is all about and like what people can do to improve on it. Uh, Wavecraft can also be promoted to like relevant communities and like content creators who might have a knack for showcasing these kinds of things, as well as like um, artists that might be using the VSTs for creating music in like on their computers. Another thing is to just have a code of conduct to make sure that people of all levels who might be interested in music production are welcome. And like this would also kind of make sure that bad ideas, not necessarily bad ideas, but like the the best ideas kind of get brought through and implemented. And I mentioned this earlier, but hackathon like events would, bring people together to like create new ideas for Wavecraft while like also shining a light on the project within the music community. And another like event that we can do is having a concert or some kind of music showcase that displays the music and sound design techniques that are like just created using the Wavecraft project. And finally, we could like host conferences and conventions. I guess, these are kind of tailored more so towards developers, but this would show off any cool innovations and achievements made by members of the community. And doing all this should create like an engaged and ever-growing community, and just overall build up the brand, I guess. So, in conclusion, by developing and managing Wavecraft, we could introduce like an accessible, free, open source VST that benefits an audience connected by like their love for music and just music technology in general, while also nurturing a creative and inclusive community that would like drive innovation in the field of music and just the world of music creation. That is all.
Thank you, Devon. That was good. Any questions or comments? Okay, so I had one comment, which is that you mentioned the tech stack, and it looks good to me. I don't know, but like obviously people are going to be developing on the tech stack, and it's sort of there's uncertainty there as to what people might find useful or what they might actually be able to accomplish in certain timelines. So, I would suggest to integrate maybe more closely, the tech stack and community. So part of the community development wouldn't just be like developing the positioning and the brand, which is important, but also having like events where you go through the tech stack, make sure people understand how to use it, update things as needed, and then maybe drive some individual projects where people can actually say, we're going to do this certain thing and we're going to work on it as a part of the community. So you might find that you need a module, or that you want to do it as sort of a modular approach where you develop one little piece of technology, and you might organize meetings around that, and you might say, okay, um, we need this thing, let's get people involved, let's work on it and showcase it in our community. So that's sort of like more tightly integrated aspect of community in the tech stack.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. So next is Sahithi. Are you there? Yeah. Are you ready to go? Like you're muting and unmuting. I don't know. Are you able to go, Sahithi? I don't know if Lila is here. Doesn't look like Lila's here. Uh, Looks like Heathy might be logging back in. In the meantime, actually, maybe Joey could go.
Yeah, sure, I can go.
All right. We can see your slides.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, so my project is based on an open source community for UX design. And so just a quick overview of this project. It's meant to explore the issue behind a lack of information, resources, and questions available in a more like direct and concise manner, a structured manner for people in the user experience design field. So right now, it seems like everything is pretty spread out, pretty disparate, and it's not always put together in the way that's most beneficial to actual field users. So, and this proposes a solution of an open source user-based forum style community that promotes the sharing of those resources, questions and answers, and more. And so, yeah, I'm looking at the models of niche community forums that have already been established for some time, like Stack Overflow and Reddit, just to understand how the infrastructure of those platforms is most beneficial to establishing something similar for a different niche community. So really the purpose of this is that because user experience is such a quickly growing field, it's not been able to keep up in curating community for sharing open source structured information, resources, providing Q&A or space for Q&A rather. And so, yeah, anybody who may be in the field of user experience design or maybe in related fields such as software engineering or product design or just general web design and development may find user experience design information helpful. And so people from those different fields can collaborate to create and share valuable info and resources. And it empowers designers with accessible knowledge, fosters collaborative work, and furthers innovation in the field. So, one part of it is community building. The user experience design community is large, but once again, it tends to be scattered and disparate. There are many different forums that aren't specifically for user experience design that information lives on, as well as different, resource sites. Haven't found much about, Q&A type style sites for this specific community. But the goal here is that it brings together groups of professionals, enthusiasts, instructors, mentors, and it captures all of the different groups in that industry, not just the people who are putting or who are user experience designers by maybe professional role or academic studies. And yeah, the most important part of this is that because we're capturing all of those groups, they really have the ability to engage and assist on all different levels, whether that's actually providing resources or answering questions. There's many different levels to which they can engage with this. Collaboration is also really important for this. So that comes in many different forms, but it's a contribution of information, curation of resources, questions and answers, maybe assisting with specific projects or task work. And really the idea is for the platform itself, anybody can submit bugs, issues, feedback, recommendations that could help improve the platform and continue to provide resources and information in the most valuable ways. As far as governance goes, the platform content is going to be entirely user driven. So really the users are the key stakeholders of the platform. They won't necessarily have access to push updates themselves, but they will have the ability to contribute the actual content that you'll see. And there's a level of moderation that takes place, which the way I envision it is that you identify who is a top contributor, who's a subject matter expert, and allow them the capabilities to moderate the content that lives on the platform. And yeah, documentation should be well kept on the actual development side of this to ensure smooth transitions between project owners and contributors. So I envision this also being, it might be an organization that owns this, but it could also be a collection of subject matter experts who come together to actually take ownership of this and be the primary contributors. As far as implementation goes, I would say, ideally having a very scalable and light but powerful web application stack. And so I think React for the front end, Node for the back end, using an SQL database, because I think the relational data piece of this is important. The ways in which you can tie maybe Q&As together underneath certain resources. Those are types of things that you can only do with relational databases. And then Microsoft Azure, because really the Microsoft ecosystem is unmatched, and so the way that you can continue to integrate it with their different service solutions is pretty powerful. For code management, version control, all that sorts of stuff, I would actually steer away from GitHub and use Bitbucket. And the reason for that is because I just have a personal preference for the Atlas and ecosystem, and specifically because it's so highly integratable with Confluence and Jira, which makes project management just really seamless. And so having that level of continuity, I think, is really important for managing the project effectively. And it would take on an agile methodology for project management. The goal is to fail fast, and so that way you can continue to modify the platform to suit the user's needs. And so, the reason I chose to do this project is just because I've always been passionate about UX design. It's the field that I'm in, and it impacts the lives of anybody who uses technology. Something like this has the potential to revolutionize the way that user experience designers not only just work, but the way they learn, the way they collaborate. And it'll push the industry forward to the point where I think it can significantly impact the ability for people to get jobs. It can impact the availability of user experience designers throughout the field. And ideally, through the development process, just keep it light, keep it fast, and continue to focus on the user-driven aspect of the platform, since it is a community forum essentially. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Joey. Did we have any comments or questions? Yeah, so I like that presentation very much. I think it was very in depth and complete. I like that you mentioned Bitbucket, because we've been doing all of our things in GitHub, but that's not the only version control system there is. And Bitbucket is one of them, and it hooks into the Atlassian ecosystem, which is a different ecosystem, of course. And then you have all these tools. So sometimes you have to consider, if you have certain tools that you're working with, what is the best way to do it? And so Bitbucket is one of those ways, and it works very similar to GitHub. Of course, there are also other version control systems like Subversion. And there are things where, if you're working on very specialized projects and other tools, you might want to use that to integrate things. The other question I had was about the specificity of what's going on in the community. So you have a UI UX community, and you're helping people work in an open way. Do you plan on having like specific projects that you sponsor, or having, the reason I ask this is because it's good to have like very discrete pieces that people can hang on to. If you have like just the general, this is UI UX, there's a tendency for people to go all over the place and not really focus on specific topics or projects. So I mean, it's definitely okay. It's just that, like, I'm wondering if you had thoughts about like specific things that you would sponsor or feature within that community.
Yeah, I would think about maybe the most common things that help people accelerate their work. So I'm thinking about providing maybe reusable design systems, or design components could be part of it. You could highlight key pieces about accessibility and design for applications or the web, things like that. I hadn't really thought about getting too far into it, just because I think that user, I guess, like ownership of the content is probably what makes it valuable. But I see what you're saying, and the fact
Yeah.
that if you provide like specific, I guess if I took on the model of like Reddit, thinking about like subreddits. So in this case, the main quote unquote Reddit could be the UX design community, but then the subreddits are the specific topics. So that's an interesting take that I hadn't thought about yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's very good. Thank you. Looks like Sahithi is back, and I don't know if you can share your screen or
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
yes, yes. Yeah, let's see it. Thank you.
Share this. So for my project, I wanted to create an app that focuses on like clean makeup. And to get started, so for an app overview, the main issue is that many makeup and skincare products use very harmful and unsustainable products. The majority of popular products um, pose many like cancer or reproductive risks to users. So there are many products that are being created right now that focus on using cleaner products, more sustainable products that are better for the earth. And now consumers like seeing these products are interested in purchasing these specific products. But the issue is that um, it's very hard for people to understand which products are actually clean, which are the products that they're actually looking for, because any company can just write clean on its packaging and claim that it's clean, but it could still definitely be harmful. There's no body that actually regulates that. So the idea for this is that creating an app that allows users to see how safe products are and see safer options. So right now there are apps that are available that rate like how clean or how sustainable a product is, but each app has like different rankings and it never recommends a better alternative. So people have to look through many options to find what they're looking for. But the goal here is person can put in a product they're interested in, and if it's not recommended for them, they can find a similar suitable one. And this would kind of the users for this could be a very wide range of people because the majority of people are using makeup or skincare products, even if it's as basic as just like lotion every morning. So for high level project plan, so we'd kind of start off with determining the project goals, defining the features to develop and to tell sorry to develop a tech stack, and then moving on to like focusing on the community. So some things that would need to be done is developing like a README file, some onboarding plans for new collaborators, and defining community rules. And then moving on would be the development part of the project. So people can be working on the app, and we want to make sure that we're maintaining an open and collaborative environment for people to be developing developing new features and code. And then finally, the app would be released with its first version, and it would be monitored for issues. And then, like as people work on it and create better updates, fix bugs, it would be released in future versions. And looking at the main principles that I wanted to include and like focus on would be first issue managers or issue management. So one way would be using like Kanban boards to have clear categories and tags, and then this way all the issues and like things that need to be done can stay organized so people can know what to do. So like for example, having like first issues clearly marked or like harder issues marked. So like based on how well a person understands the project and where they are with their like journey, they kind of know what they can work on. And along with this Kanban idea, like keeping agile methodology principles in mind, so we can have some managers and like based on who the collaborators availability and the way they're working, we can have sprints and kind of different sprints, and it can kind of adjust to like the collaborator's schedule, and the managers in charge of each issue can keep track of that. And then next would be collaboration in public events. So one way to increase collaboration could be to host public events like hackathons or like datathons, docathons, and this will get people more engaged and involved. Since like this kind of event would happen over a shorter period of time, people would be more likely to kind of dedicate their time um, and like really focus for that period of time, and then hopefully after it too they'll still stay engaged, and it'll kind of increase awareness. And then along with that, for collaboration, um it can people can communicate on um tools like Slack. And then next, for the final principle of version control, they would be able to maintain different versions using like forks, and all the code would be pushed on to GitHub, so they can revert to any previous version. And like people can make sure for each version or any update that they make sure to put very good documentation, so that if they leave like a version or leave like a piece that they're working on off at one point, the next person will know where to like continue from. And then for next steps, some things that would need to happen is like, if I was building this, would be define the scope and then build the app framework. So some things that I kind of there'd be more details in my paper, but some things I'm thinking about is like the app would use Python just because it's a more beginner friendly language, and I'm assuming the people that are like working on this, since it's not as like tech heavy of a project, it's more focused on just like makeup, skincare. If any like newer and like beginner um, kind of coders want to work on it, I think Python would be a really good language for them to get started on. And most people that are comfortable are very, most like experienced people are very comfortable with this language. And then I'd want to use Apache 2.0 for licensing, since that would be a good open source like software application for licensing. And then next would be the first app would get released and updated with its initial collaborators, and hopefully as like the app gains some like visibility or like through events like hackathons, it would get increase its collaborators. And then finally, the last goal would be to learn from challenges throughout this process, kind of see what people are responding well to, what they would like to see changed, since this is like an open source community, and fix that to better help the collaborators and the users. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very good. Do we have any comments or questions? So yeah, I think that's great. I think you mentioned that you have a community where you may not have a lot of coders or people who are comfortable coding want to be involved. So you would choose something like Python, or there are also non-code uh, options where you have like no code development or low code development, which might also be a consideration. And then having hackathons where you pose ideas, or you kind of introduce people into the coding challenges. I think that's a great focus for, especially for a project where it's not like focused on code, or something where there are a lot of coding tools available, and you have people who want to contribute, but they may not be like hardcore programmers, and that holds true for a lot of projects. You get people who want to contribute, but they don't know how to put it into code, and so that those kind of options are always good for people to have, and it really does increase your participation. So thank you once again, Sahiti. Yeah. So it looks like Tyler is next.
Sounds good. All right. Can you hear and see my screen? Everything all good?
Yes.
Awesome. So this is my final paper presentation. I originally started this project thinking I wanted to do an open source project for sustainable living. With growing concerns over climate change and sustainability, there's a need for open source tools to help provide more people with sustainable living tools. And the goal of this original plan was to develop tools for sustainable living, such as apps for tracking carbon footprints, tools for reducing energy consumption, and resources for sustainable food production. But in a recent data science project, I actually was feeling very inspired to change the course very much completely from what I was doing. So I decided to do managing an open source machine learning library project because I was doing, well, machine learning is super popular right now, like in the data science community. And I was, doing some machine learning, and I'm like, oh, I have to import so many different libraries, and some of them don't work too well with each other. And I was really thinking that this would be effective if I like wrote my project on making my own open source machine learning library to make this code and make it more accessible, make it implement with more of these other libraries. So and then I kind of go over what I talk about in my paper. So good afternoon, everyone. I thank you for being here and listening to my presentation. So this project is built on the principles of open source and open work or working open, which are important in managing any open source project. In the presentation, I will provide an overview of my project, its goals, implementation, and evaluation. So the open source machine learning library project's goal is to provide a comprehensive set of algorithms and tools for machine learning and data science. The project is important in the context of machine learning and data science because it allows researchers and practitioners to access cutting edge algorithms and tools for their work. And the library would include a wide range of algorithms and tools such as neural networks, decision trees, random forests, and clustering algorithms. And I found this graphic that I really like that talks about these different kinds of models that you can do with machine learning. So you have unsupervised, supervised, and reinforcement learning, which are some of the areas that I'd like to focus on in like the library. More specifically, well, I guess more popular right now is kind of like that reinforcement learning, like ChatGPT and stuff. But more traditional, like unsupervised, supervised, so like linear regression and clustering. So, and then the third part I talk about in my paper is just project management for this project. So this would be managed using open source and working open principles, which involve collaboration, transparency, and community participation. The tools and techniques used to manage the project could include version control systems like Git, collaborative documentation platforms like GitHub, and communication platforms like Slack. Community collaboration is critical to the success of the project, and contributors from all over the world could help improve and maintain the library. And the way I'd implement this is the library would be implemented using the Python programming language that's very popular and widely used for data science, and built on top of popular open source libraries like NumPy, Skippy, Matplotlib, and Pandas. There's other ones too that I don't mention. I could just go on and on and on about different libraries, but really working on with these other ones and build on top of what they do and seeing what we could do better. The library would provide an easy to use interface that allows researchers and practitioners to build and train machine learning models quickly and efficiently. And to facilitate this, the library would include tools for model selection and evaluation to help users make informed decisions about their machine learning models. And this kind of goes with also like not everyone has to be like a very high level data scientist to be involved. What we could do with this facilitation is, you might have this data, and hopefully we can help you choose what model you might want to use to predict with the data. For example, like why would you rather use linear over clustering? And we'd include documentation to describe this, and then specifically how to use these algorithms, which a lot of libraries also do provide this documentation. And I do discuss examples of how the library can be used in real world machine learning projects within the paper as well. And then part 5 would be evaluation. So the success of the project would be evaluated based on user adoption, community engagement, impact on real world projects, and then feedback. So user adoption can be measured by the number of downloads, stars, and forks on the project's GitHub repository. Community engagement can be measured by the number of contributors, issues, and pull requests of the repository. And the impact on real world projects can be measured in ways such as time and cost savings realized by using the library compared to other solutions like these other libraries we talked about. And I really want to focus on like accuracy of the models too. That's a big part of machine learning is how accurate your model is to make these predictions. And then more specifically, like making people aware of the accuracy. I know like a lot of times when I do these models, I have to actually do like, you know, root mean square standard error or like your average absolute error and stuff too. But it'd be nice if these were like automatically implemented with like residuals and stuff. Feedback from the community would be incorporated into the project's development, and updates would be released periodically. And then I kind of made this quick like chart just talking about like how everything's connected to the machine learning projects. So you have community collaboration, success factors, and algorithms and tools. And then from algorithms and tools, you have real world machine learning projects, programming language and development. And then for programming language and development, you have collaborative documentation and version control systems. So in the conclusion for my paper, I say, you know, the open source machine learning library project would be an important initiative that aims to provide cutting edge algorithms and tools for machine learning and data science. The project would be managed using open source and working open principles, which enable collaboration, transparency, and community participation. And the project has the potential to have significant impact on the field of machine learning and data science. And I recommend future work on the project, such as continuous updates to code and models to stay at the forefront of the field as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. It was very good. So one of the things I'm wondering is, you know, what do you view? Because they're like the whole field of machine learning is very hard to kind of get your head around, I think. And so I can see where you're going with this. It's like almost like a curation of the different toolboxes and models and things like that. So I mean, you can get that information from the web, but it takes a lot of digging, and it's not immediately obvious what the best tool is for your problem.
Yeah.
So that's good that you have that aspect. I would emphasize actually the curation aspect of it, because I think that's where the value lies. You know, there are all these tool boxes everywhere. You know, if you're entering the field, especially, you have no idea what to use for your problem. You know, which toolkits maybe are not worth using, which ones are really good at the problem you're trying to solve. So definitely, yeah, and then, you know, you also have this issue of sort of making people aware of like different aspects of the toolkits. So, you know, if something is really accurate on a certain class of problem, you might highlight that. And you can use that community structure really to sort of emphasize these things. Like you could put out like, you know, like visualizations or, you know, in newsletters where people would subscribe to your newsletter, and then you'd highlight certain models, certain toolkits and their benefits. So people will read this over time and they'll say, oh yeah, that's an interesting model. I might want to use that.
Yeah.
And so they'll get this knowledge from just being in that community.
Yeah, I think those are great points that you make too. I'll definitely have to go and make sure to include or elaborate further on those, like in the final paper.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have any questions or comments from anyone for Tyler? So we have Suhas. Are you there, Suhas?
Yeah, I'm there.
All right, go ahead and share your screen.
1 second. You can see this, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so my open source project it's titled Cooking Made Easy. It's very simple. Sounds exactly what it is. basically the topic is that it's an application where you scan a grocery bill slash receipt slash list, and it suggests possible food recipes to follow and um, make using items on the list. This app can also be personalized to the user's preferences, so that if they have any dietary restrictions, any allergies, if they prefer any cuisine, etc. This app can adhere to that based off of like the user inputting that into the app system. Um, and this app can also work the other way, where um, we can recommend what food items to buy to make a certain dish that the user wants to make. So, for example, if the user wants to make like an apple pie or something but doesn't know how to, they're able to just put that in the app, and they will the app will give them ingredients and stuff to buy to make an apple pie. The purpose of the app is to just make life easier for people who want to learn how to cook and for people who are just getting into cooking. Um, a lot of people who want to get into cooking initially they feel very discouraged at the beginning because they do not really know the ingredients required for a lot of meals that they want to make, and ultimately going through and looking up each of these recipes and finding the ingredients for everything that they want to make can be very time consuming, cost a lot of money, and there's just a lot of effort that they don't really have to put in, and which is why the target audience are not just people who are new to cooking, but people who also cook a lot at home. So anyone who kind of is interested in cooking, I guess, would be the target audience for this app. Um, the benefits for the app are as follows. A lot of people who are learning how to cook, who have just started cooking, can use this app in order to give them a quick and easy recipe to make by simply just scanning a grocery list or a receipt. People who have certain like meals in mind that they want to cook but don't know the ingredients required can kind of just type the dish in the app, and it can quickly tell them what ingredients they need to make this item. Um, and it's very useful for college students and people who are just getting into cooking, entry level people who are just cooking, because very cost effective, time effective, and doesn't really take a lot of work to use the app. Um, this is the app creation process. It's very broad right now, but these are kind of like the steps. Obviously, defining the app topic, which is what I did above, but also defining the goals, creating the wireframe, researching existing app solutions, and trying to see what I can take from those, um, developing the app and testing the app, as well as maintaining a sustainability plan for the app going forward. So how does open source tie into this app creation process? So open source, has a lot of benefits, especially for this project. Um, One of the main benefits is that many people can work on designing and implementing the app at the same time, since it's a community. Um, Another benefit is that others can use this app to create their own version of this app and kind of base their app off of this one. Open source is very cost effective, and it's designed to work in cloud native technologies. Um, and last but not least, transparency and flexibility are two of the biggest strengths of using open source, um, as the software can be used in any way in an open source community. How will I implement class principles in the project? Obviously, like the 6 questions about building an open source community include: what is the purpose? How should members behave? How to determine the state of the community? What communities are similar to mine? High level engagement plan, as well as developing um, a community that's consistent and shows evangelism. And those are the questions that I'll be addressing, in the paper that I'll be writing about this app. I'll also be undertaking the use of the waterfall approach, which is kind of like a flowchart on the right, where you kind of just go step by step. First, trying to get the requirements for the app, kind of do like a rough design, then go to the implementation process. After the implementation, go to the verification process, and then maintenance and sustainability for the future is the last step of the waterfall approach. And last but not least, just to summarize everything, this app provides a lot of solution to people who are new to cooking and need a way to save time, money, and effort in order to find a cost and time effective, way to make recipes at home. It can be developed a lot easier, and the benefits of the app are a lot greater by implementing an open source community because of the reasons I mentioned above. But to summarize them, because of cost effectiveness, flexibility, sustainability, as well as reproducibility for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Suhas. there any questions or comments on the presentation from anyone? Okay, so yeah, I think it's interesting you're the first person to propose using a waterfall approach as opposed to agile. I mean, that's just great. I mean, there's no reason you can't use that. It's something that predates agile, but I think depending on the project, that's something you want to consider. And maybe, if agile isn't always the best answer for managing a project, just depending on how it's set up and what you want to achieve. So that was great work. Um, so we have Ben. Is Ben here? Oh, looks like we lost Ben. And we're waiting on one other person, Leanne, who will join us in a bit. So I'm not sure. Um, kind of separately. And if you want to, I don't know if you want to go now or you want everyone else to leave, or how did you want to do that? Oh, Joseph, have you gone yet?
Hello, I can go now.
Okay, yeah.
Right, just give me a second.
Okay, we can see your screen. You're muted though, so.
Okay, perfect. Is it the PowerPoint or the one with the notes as well?
Oh, I can just see the PowerPoint.
Okay, perfect.
All
Okay.
right.
So my open source idea is a stock market analysis tool. And so this is an investing in the stock market can be a lucrative way to grow wealth, but it can also be a risky and complex. In order to make informed decisions, it is crucial to have deep understanding of the market trends and behaviors. So the importance of the stock market analysis cannot be overstated, as it provides investors with valuable insights into the market conditions, also helping them to identify potential risks and opportunities. However, the vast amount of data and information available can be overwhelming for individual investors just like us. So this is where the comprehensive analysis tool comes in, as it can help investors navigate the complexities of the stock market, and it can also provide them with the necessary tools to assess the market trends and behaviors. In this presentation, I will introduce the stock market analysis tool, which is designed to provide investors with a user-friendly, customizable platform to analyze historical data, also to gain insights into market trends and behaviors, and informed investment decisions. All right. For the target audience, I will be specifically targeting individual investors, financial advisors, institutional investors, and traders. Also, with these, there may be other people who are interested in the tool, such as academics, researchers, and journalists who are studying the stock market and financial markets more broadly. Ultimately, the target audience for the stock market analysis tool will depend on specific features and capabilities of the tool. So for the background, investing in the stock market can be complex and challenging. So particularly for those who don't have the expertise to operate. So the stock market analysis is critical process for examining historical data to make informed investment decisions. So this tool provides a comprehensive platform for investors to analyze data and gain insights. So with the user-friendly interface, customizable options, and technical indicators, this tool is valuable resource to help investors navigate the stock market. So for the development, um, I broke this down into 7 steps. So for planning, there would be extensive market research to identify the needs and pain the points of the investors when it comes to the stock market analysis. Then for the develop plan and the tools, features, and functionality. Also for the design, the user interface and experience of the tool ensures that it is intuitive, user-friendly, and customizable. For data collection, I will plan to collect the historical data market from a reliable source, such as the NYSE or the NASDAQ. For the analysis, um, I will analyze the data to identify patterns, trends, and technical indicators. And for development, we will build a platform incorporating the data analysis and designing of the user interface. And for testing, there will be extensive testing and research to ensure that the tool is reliable and accurate, so people could use it. And finally, for launch, um, when this is launched, it will be available to everyone, so we don't um, like leave one part of the population behind in a way, so everyone could use this platform. So for the features, I was thinking to be a highly customizable option, so people can select stocks or sectors to analyze the time periods. Also, the historical performance visualization allows people to look back at the past to see past data. And for technical indicators, it would offer a variety of indicators such as RSI, Bollinger Bands, and those, etc., to so people could use this platform to their liking. And also news and portfolio management would be really important because news is very important when it comes to the stock market because um, there's always news about stocks such as Apple and Microsoft, and those are key indicators for the S&P 500. So these key features will provide investors with a valuable resource to help them navigate the complexities of the market and make informed decisions and manage their portfolio effectively. So why open source? So first of all, it increases innovation, collaborative development. So with this, anyone can contribute to the development of the project, leading to a more collaborative and community-driven approach. Also, lower cost. So having a lower cost development allows for volunteers rather than hiring paid developers. Also, since there isn't an open source trading platform, transparency is really big, making this very unique. So by making the source code of the project open, users can see how the project works, and which can increase trust and improve overall security. However, there are some cons such as security concerns. So this dealing with money, it's a big problem. So this could lead to security vulnerabilities if not properly managed. Also, quality control, since this is open source, there is a chance that people who are not an expert may edit the quality of the software, and also the lack of accountability. Also, intellectual property and complexity is also a big issue since it requires more coordination, communication between the contributors. However, with these, open source can lead to a greater community contribution, transparency, flexibility, and low cost. And these benefits can ultimately result in a better tool that meets the needs of a wider range of investors. So for performance and scalability, the tool should be able to handle large amounts of historical data. Also, user traffic is a big part. So this tool should be able to work without experience lag, which is very important, and also cloud infrastructure and cache and indexing. So for limitations in future work, some limitations is that the accuracy of the historical data can um, can sometimes be inaccurate, and also for technical expertise, the tool may require certain level of expertise to use, and also legal and ethical considerations is also a big part since this is dealing with the SEC and those sort of things. For future work, I was thinking of having a real-time data analysis. So um, it updates real time compared to having like a 1 second delay. And also having customizable indicators and not just preset ones. And also integration with other trading platforms. For this to be used widely, it has to be um, able to integrate with other platforms that other people use. And yeah.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. Very good. Do we have any questions or comments? Okay, yeah. So the thing you brought up about the positives and negatives of open source, we talked about that in class a little bit, but it looks like you've thought about this in terms of your project. So, in your final paper, you might draw out some of those distinctions. So, like the negative things you listed there, what are they? How would they impact your open source strategy? So, intellectual property, you have to figure out maybe how to license things or how to give access to certain things but not other things. That's often a common concern, I think, in like large corporations that do open source, where they have certain pieces of the code they don't want people to touch, and then there's certain things that they make open source, and it works out, but you have to be deliberate about that strategy.
Yeah. Having it open source makes it really unique since no other trading platform does it. They're all private, so that's why I thought about the idea.
Yeah, yeah, good job, thank you. All right, so we have Leanne, Diana, and Pablo. So I know Diana and Pablo wanted to go separately. I don't know if you're comfortable in this size group or if you want Leanne to go first, and then we can do our presentations.
I can go.
Okay, Leanne, go ahead.
Let me share my screen.
All right, you can see your screen.
Just give me 1 second. Stop something. Okay, so this is my open source project. So I kind of chose a community social networking platform as my interest for the open source project. And kind of why I chose this was because I feel like I'm very like passionate about like my own hobbies, such as like yoga or cooking. So then whenever I discover someone else is also uh, interested in that kind of hobby, I get really excited. So basically, this is kind of like how I thought of the project. So with this in mind, I'm interested in creating kind of like a community platform that allows different users to sign up on this platform and just basically connect and meet new people based on that and connect based on their hobbies and interests. So this is mostly targeted towards hobbyists and enthusiasts and just anyone that has like some kind of interest that they're either wanting to learn more about or wanting to pursue and just meet other people with the same interests. So I feel like this is a very interesting idea because this platform will bring several advantages for both like individual users as well as the general community. Like we said, some of the benefits include like promoting like knowledge and spreading knowledge and like just expanding different perspectives, which is something that I'm always like want to do. Like I always like enjoy learning new things. This also increases the community engagement and also building networks with people that are similar to you and just like-minded individuals. So basically, I figured this kind of platform could feature things like forums, chat rooms, event calendars, and everything like that. So creating an open source community platform for hobbyists and enthusiasts, like I said, that's kind of like a target audience for me. And with this in mind, I think users can choose their location based on where they are to find people near them to like discover these interests and pursue these interests. And like I said, features can include chat rooms, calendars, event calendars, or even partnerships with different like for example, if I want to meet other people that like yoga and I want to sign up for a class with other people, I think partnerships is something really important that could be included in the platform. So for my project vision, I kind of wanted to make it more collaborative. So my open source project vision is to create a very collaborative and inclusive community platform that allows people to connect with others. The aim of this project is to build a platform that empowers users to actively contribute through open discussions, collaborate work, which is the open source principle, and even issue tracking and more. This aligns with the principles of like transparency and inclusivity and collaboration, which are all the open source principles we discussed in class. In addition, I have hopes that this community social networking platform will be very flexible and reusable and just like reliable, and also enable users to create new and innovative ideas. For example, some of the principles I want to include in this project is sustainability. So that means like long-term planning, financial sustainability, of course, maintenance and support of the platform. That could be like a website, an app specifically. I feel like a mobile app is very convenient and easy these days because everyone kind of just has like their phone and they can connect with others and just dive into that. I think user feedback is something that's really important that we need to think about when constructing this app or platform. And then one of the main topics that I want to prioritize is user control and openness as well as transparency. So with this in mind, users can control their own data and interactions on the platform by allowing them to manage their own community engagement. And that includes privacy settings and just also security, making sure like everyone that does use the platform is safe. I think I mentioned, yeah, security and the slide, prioritizing security and privacy of users by making sure data protection practices are up to date. And that kind of goes hand in hand with the licensing aspect. So I want to use like an open source license platform that allows free use and also modification of the system, which also kind of ties along with user feedback as well. Like I mentioned, I want something that is able to allow the app to partner with other organizations. So integration is one of the big aspects that I want to include as well. So the app or the website should be able to partner with other organizations based on the hobbies and interests, so they can actually take action on the hobby or interest. So for example, I thought about like partnering with Core Power Yoga. I like to go here a lot. So if I met like a bunch of different people that also like going to Core Power Yoga, then that would be something that would be really fun and like bring people together as a community and sign up for a class together. So yeah, so these are like the main principles that I want to include for my open source project that mainly promotes the values of openness and community driven development. And ultimately, I hope this platform will create a very vibrant, diverse, and dynamic community of people who want to like learn, collaborate, and just grow together while also pursuing their specific interests and hobbies that they like. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you, Leanne. Any questions or comments? Yeah. So yeah, I know you weren't here when I talked someone else's project. I think it was Joey, where he did, or I don't know, maybe it was Tyler, where they talked about they had a very general community approach, and I said that you want to be able to have events that you tie sort of like, so you don't want to just let people do whatever in the community. You want to have like some curation of events. So like if you have like a yoga event, you might advertise that and sort of organize people around that, because there's a tendency for people to just go all over the place, and you end up with, like, you're, if you have like, say, a subreddit, they usually do it by topic. They tend to go all over the place, and there's less community cohesion as a result. So, you might think about having like sponsored events or events that you advertise that
Hmm.
maybe are going on in the community.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
Yeah, I think that part is like going to like be in like the kind of partnerships aspect that I mentioned. Like with that, like you can have sponsored events or different groups you can join or anything like that that can be geared and personalized to people that are in the platform.
Yeah. That
That's
sounds
good.
great. Yeah. Thank you.
Um,
All right. Next is Lila. She's back. And if you want to share your screen and go ahead.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Make this. All right. Hi everyone. So
Oh,
in
your screen is loading. They had this problem before. If you just go to the slideshow, you don't
oh
have to have like a
your screen sharing is paused. Is that what
maybe. Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
oh wait.
It just says loading, so
Uh-huh.
it's just black
Oh, I
screen.
see.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm gonna stop sharing for a quick second and then try to do it again.
All right.
Is it still showing the same error?
It's not showing anything now.
Oh wait. Oh, wrong one. Here we.
There we go. Okay,
There we go.
good.
All right, perfect. Okay. So hi everyone. So in a hypothetical situation, I would see myself managing an open source project for a travel planner app. Someone who is passionate about travel and technology like myself might have experienced the frustration of planning a trip and realize that existing tools or apps don't really meet their needs or expectations. So currently I'm trying to plan a Europe trip for the summer with my friends and it's been a total nightmare. So I could see an opportunity to create a tool that would make the process of trip planning more efficient, personalized, enjoyable, and accessible to everyone. And I want to take into account users' unique interests and preferences and provide information on transportation options or local attractions. And by managing an open source project for a travel planner app, I can bring together a community of like minded people who share their passion and expertise in various areas, such as maybe software development, UX design, and of course, travel planning. And since open source projects are typically more flexible and adaptable to changing needs than proprietary software, users of the project can modify the code to add new features or customize existing ones, creating a more personalized experience for everyone, like integrating, for example, with public transportation APIs and allow users to view real-time info on maybe on public transportation schedules and delays, or they can even make it personalized by using an open source weather API and see real-time weather info for their travel destinations. And these are just two examples that I am going to mention in the paper, but there are a lot of other ways people could contribute improvements to the design itself of the overall project that I'll later touch on in the paper. And together they can create a tool that addresses the needs of travelers and provides them with a more personalized experience. I think the key here is just making it more personalized for each person that uses this project. And this can be very rewarding, both personally and professionally, as they can see the impact of their work on real users and contribute to the larger open source community. And here's some of the open source principles we talked about in class and how they might apply to my project. So first off, it's usability. A travel planner app should be easy to use, even for people who are not too great with text, so it should be user friendly with clear instructions and simple navigation. Openness, so this could mean that the app source code is available on a public repository and that users can view the development roadmap and contribute to the project through things like bug reports and feature requests. And transparency means that the development process is open and transparent to everyone involved in the project. So this might mean that the development roadmap and release schedule are publicly available and that users are kept informed of any major changes to the app. And collaboration, of course, so it's an essential principle of open source development. And in the context of a travel planner app, this might mean that contributors work together to create an app that meets the needs of a diverse range of users and community. Of course, it's important to build a strong and supportive community around the project and encourage users to participate constantly in the development process. So this might mean that the app has an active user forum or online community where users can share travel tips and recommendations and contribute to the development of the app as a whole. Accuracy, so the app should provide accurate information about travel destinations, including information on things like flights, accommodations, and attractions. So this info should be always kept up to date so that users can plan their trips accordingly. And integration, the app should be able to integrate with other travel related apps and services such as like booking sites and transportation providers like Airbnb or like Expedia. And this would allow users to plan and book their travel itineraries in one place. And lastly, of course, is flexibility. So the app should be flexible enough to accommodate all types of travel preferences, either budget friendly or like more like luxurious trips. So it should be able to provide customized recommendations based on a user's individual like preferences. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks good. I think, yeah, a lot of those principles be applied to something like travel planning, which kind of had travel agents and then they went away because we had travel websites, but now we have the need to like kind of make like a little bit more deeply have a little bit more deep experience with the travel websites, I guess. So that would be a good way to kind of crowdsource a lot of that.
Yeah, I totally agree. It would definitely be an easier way to navigate through all these like different types of websites and kind of like merge them all together, make it just like a better seamless experience. Because right now it's been, yeah, like I said, total nightmare to plan anything. So, yeah, that's all.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess now I had a request that we have people go separately. So if Lila and Leanne could leave the meeting, we'll have those people go. Thank you for attending.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Yeah, go ahead and share your screen.
Yep. Just give me 1 second. Wait, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. So my project is on a concept for an app called AI Home. The problem that my project addresses is the fact that Americans waste a lot of money each year on heating, lighting, and other electrical appliances each year, and this can easily be avoided if these things could just be automated from the tip of your fingertips. And so my solution to this problem is an application that lets you monitor and control your house's lighting, heating, security, and other electrical appliances so that you can manually shut it off whenever you leave home to go on vacation. And also the app's idea is to incorporate machine learning to learn data based on how much you use those appliances, so it could optimize it and turn it off or reduce it whenever you're sleeping or not using it. So project management pipeline for this project is first our documentation. Storing the code is going to be in GitHub. Visual Studio Code will be used to create the code. I really like Visual Studio Code because there's a live share option, which enables people to work on code at the same time, as well as you can obviously code on your own when others aren't free as well. And then the project specific documentation will be stored in Google Drive. For community resource management, I'll be using guidance trees so that anyone in the community that wants to contribute can have a better idea of how they can contribute through this tree. If they would like to contribute to the coding side of it, that tree will branch down to give them further options on how they can contribute, or to the building aspect of it, which is more of the business side. They'll have options there as well. I would use Slack for Teams communication and organize everything into channels. And whether through Slack forums or another forum platform, I would manage community friction through those forums. Third is public contributions. I would probably host a few hackathons, either through Kaggle competitions on data sets that involve how much energy Americans use on average and what times they use, if that data is available somewhere, to see what kind of machine learning algorithms people in the public can come up with to potentially predict a specific homeowner's usage and what time they use it and whatnot. Ideathons for business development focused on what kind of features people would want to see on the app so that the app development team could have a better idea of what kind of features are wanted by the public. And then minimum viable communities for company growth to make sure their company is always growing. Project scope, using GitHub for issue management to identify and assign issues. We'll also be doing a lot of issue revision, in which we will assess the issue's impact on project scope and see how that affects the overall timeline. And then finally, rescope the project by adjusting timelines depending on how big the issue is and how long it'll take to adjust. I really like using Notion to keep track of all the tasks that are available or are pending. I think it's a really nice interface. And I was looking at ZenHub as well, I think, but I think Notion is just more familiar. And recently, Notion has this Notion AI that they've incorporated, which makes it really easy to create tables and just visualize everything much easier. Fifth is project sustainability. Automation with AI. There's a lot we can do with OpenAI these days, and GitHub Copilot, even if you're not an experienced coder, you can still contribute to the coding end if you just familiarize yourself with GitHub Copilot's functionalities. I want to use an agile methodology system in which we follow this image here where we plan, design, develop, test, deploy, review, launch, and then do that again 3 times. And then I really value creativity. So no matter how much this product is automated through whether, I think we would mostly focus on automating like the branding side of it and the advertising. I would still want it to be human-centered design because I know with AI you lose a lot of that creativity that humans can give you. So no matter what we do with automation, I would still prefer that before it's sent out or before it's published, that we have someone or some team that goes through and maybe adds a creative spin to whatever the AI automates for us. And finally, project financials. Sponsorships, university grants. I know there are a few. I actually attended one from the Granger College of Engineering just to see what it would look like. They have a lot of startup pitches where you can win some money. So make sure I attend those. Licensing software, that's extremely important as well. And then grants, making sure that we don't focus on just one kind of grant, but or if we do get a grant, that we diversify the funding into operating capital and program grants so that everything is diversified. That's it. Thank you.
All right, that was very good. Thank you. So yeah, have you thought more about the licensing? I mean, in terms of open source, and are there any potential conflicts that you foresee in like the next 5 to 10 years if you were to implement the project, say today? What would be those challenges?
Well, I think with I think there's already a few companies out there that manage. I know Apple Home is very good at optimizing your own appliances that use electricity. So I might encounter problems there, but I think my app might be the first of its kind to optimize all the home appliances, including gas, electricity, water, security, and honestly just anything in the house. I haven't heard of an app that does all of that, but I'm sure that there's probably people that are developing that, and there's apps specifically for each one of those. So since my app would cover all of those together, I might encounter licensing issues with each individual one, and so I would have to see how to go about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's always worth looking at the landscape of all the competitors and see where they are, because sometimes people haven't done a comprehensive application. Like sometimes they just do it might be for a certain appliance, or other applications out there might be very bad at what they do.
Right.
So that's always something to constantly keep appraised of. And so I think that's great that you're thinking ahead, and it looks like a very good project. Thank you for presenting that.
Yeah, no problem. Do you have any pointers on where I can maybe improve? Because this is basically an outline for my final paper, so I was just going to dive into each of these subsections a little bit more. Is there any section that you feel I'm missing, or maybe I could add on to?
I don't think you're missing anything. I think that's a nice outline. I would just say that make sure that you get into some of these issues. Don't just kind of focus on what I think. If you focus on all of them and you dig a little bit, and you kind of have that 5 to 10 year window, thinking forward and saying, this is how we'll implement this, and then what are the challenges. So it's not that it doesn't take that much work, but it's kind of always kind of not balancing all the things in your different categories, and then thinking ahead and saying what are the challenges. And you might have a challenges section at the end, or you might just mention it at the end of each section.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, thank you so much.
You ready to share your screen?
Yes.
Okay. You can go when you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear and see your screen.
All right, sorry, I wasn't sure if I unmuted myself or not. I forgot. All right. Hi, my name is Amal Khatib. My open source project is what I call Class Chat. So just a little bit about it. Course Chat is it's an open source application that provides pre-built group chats for every course provided at university. Each semester, students will upload each course they are in and which university they are in. They will automatically be added to 2 different group chats, one directly for the course in university. The other group chat will be students at all different universities in similar courses. While it is meant for university students, these group chats are open for everyone, no matter their profession. Anyone can enter the group chat and ask or answer the questions. So one of the features of this that really makes it like an open source project is the public post feature. Public post is made to create a way for people to elaborate on how they would solve a particular problem. You can upload any style of question, and anyone can add a different solution. So for example, the top file would be on the folder, like the question. So it's how would you solve AB equals 2B where B equals 2? And then under it would give you different solutions. So anyone could submit a different type of solution as to how they would solve the problem. So here we have 2 examples of people solving the problems in 2 different ways. The purpose is that there is no universal application for students to share their questions amongst people and other students. While some courses use Discord, others use GitHub or Pidasa, there's no universal route. While all these options work, they don't provide a way for students and other individuals to discuss and aid each other with understanding complex topics.
So there's no really way for a student and somebody in any part of the world to discuss, or for two students at different universities to like figure out how, if they have the same type of questions and the same type of errors that they're running into, how to solve it. So the target audience, this idea was originally created with the intention students in high school and those taking engineering courses, specifically computer science courses, since these courses tend to be harder. So over here, I put just the kind of the averages. These are the average GPAs of every course, or every major, I mean, in engineering, and then every high school major, and I put the key on the right. And you can see that a lot of these courses are with lower GPA averages than higher, so there needs to be a way for people to communicate and like help aid the students in any way possible. So the potential target audience. So while that was the exact target audience, there is still more people it could reach out to. So this idea can be spread to any major, any university. It can additionally be used by anyone who is trying to learn a new skill and wants a way to practice their specialty to ensure that they stay updated, as many fields are always changing. So let's say there's somebody who is in like computer science or data science, and these majors are constantly changing and this information is constantly coming. Having this as a resource to them can keep them updated with the most recent technology and the most recent information. And then also somebody, let's say, who's like a stay-at-home like parent, and they can't go back to school, but they want to keep learning these skills. They can keep up with it by accessing these and helping students and seeing how certain people would answer questions. So the code I would use for this application would be a mixture of C++ and Python. It would also use GitHub-like systems to display code in VS Code and publish questions along with different ways to be resolved. So it would include the feature in GitHub we use in class where when a user edits/answers a question, it creates a new response for it. So this way that every single time that somebody is responding, they aren't changing the original question, they are creating a new response to it, but they can still have the question in front of them. So sustainability, to ensure sustainability, course chat should rely as little as possible on dependencies and be made into a closed system. Further expansion can be done by the community, potentially creating a more permanent app in a language like C that can enter. The community can help with data cleaning and determining the best structure for expansion based on their expertise and entities. So that is my course chat presentation. This is one way that I think that we can really create an open source platform for anyone to be able to edit and to be able to discuss questions and topics. It honestly feels like something that is needed but is yet to be created. But thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, we have yeah, I'm glad you could make it through. It sounds like you're still having a little bit of a problem with your voice, but
yeah, sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, I'm glad that you're able to do it. So yeah, this is great. This is a great project. I think you had a lot of the topics that we've talked about. I'm especially interested in the data analysis you did. I think you did a very good job of identifying the potential group of people you'd be serving with your project. So, now you have this very targeted audience. You can create, your resources and your sustainability plan around that particular group of people. And, you can expand it later, but sometimes it's very useful to, have one group in mind and really kind of put the project to the test in that group because you know that the pretty good chance of them adopting it and it being useful to them. So definitely, I think that's a nice thing to highlight, that aspect of it.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. So now, Ben, are you able to share your screen?
Yes, let me share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes, I can see it.
Yes. So the project that I'm going to talk about today is a rather not a whole new project, but rather an addition to an existing product, but an open source version of it, which is the Gmail shared mailbox plugin. I wanted to start my presentation with a screenshot As a officer of a RSO on campus, one of the problems that we've encountered is we have a mailbox that is dedicated to receiving all these different kinds of sponsorship requests or event notifications from different units on campus. And as you can see here, we try to categorize each email with a tag, and in this case, we have pending triage, we have needs reply, and everything else. And the purpose for this is because we receive not only just emails from local businesses when we talk about deals in sponsorship requests or important information from units that we're in charge of releasing to our RSO, but also general questions that we receive from our members. And I would say with a small RSO like us, we have around 25 officers. It's really hard for us to keep track of which emails that has already replied to, or if somebody's already working on it, or we are currently waiting on someone to figure out a response. And so this image just shows essentially there's no way in Gmail that offers an extended functionality that would solve our problem in this case. So the conclusion that I had was there isn't really a robust shared mailbox feature within Gmail. So the problems that I've identified there would be two problems. The first one would be that Gmail doesn't actually have a shared mailboxes like its competitor Microsoft Exchange, which is the one that the university offers, and it can be a limitation for businesses or teams that actually require collaborative access to a mailbox. Even though it provides options such as shared labels, as I showed in the previous slide, that allows multiple users to actually sort of manage emails. But again, it's not as robust as a dedicated mailbox. The second one I would say would be a huge security concern because the way that we're currently using it would be to actually share credentials, and that would be to have in order to have multiple users to view the mailbox, we would actually have to share the credentials, and this could be I would say a significant security risk. Because if someone were to leave the RSO, or someone if they have malicious intent and they get access to the password, they could just sign in and then they could just try to mess around with the mailbox, and there's no accountability whatsoever in terms of who did what, and there's no actual preventive measures to prevent them from doing anything. Well, there's one way, and that would be to change a password when someone leaves the team. But again, that's really tedious, and I don't think that's the best solution when there's like 25 people on the team, as we have to find a way to release those passwords. So the goal for the open source project is essentially to have a plugin that's installed on top of the Gmail. And I'm going to talk about the specifications later in the development slide. But the goal is to have a sort of like a ticketing like system in place in Gmail, where it enhances collaboration. And the way to do so is that there's going to be an option for each email to be labeled as open, close, or pending. And I would say this would be the bigger categories, but the smaller categories can be drilled down to each organization's specifications. And this would allow users to actually keep track of the status of each email and to leave comments in each email where they can talk about the status of this email, or they can tag people and say, hey, this email needs to be responded by someone else. And that would enhance collaboration and ensure that, as I said, would be suitable for the 25 people or more even to work on emails. Duplicate work, I would say, we have one common problem where everyone, where there are instances where two people are actually working on the same email, just because the one didn't know that the other person actually working on it. And this resulted in actually we sent out two double emails to the client. And this is not, I would say this is not intended, but it did happen once in the past. And we can prevent this by assigning emails to a single person. So maybe the manager in the RSO can be the one that decides which email, who should respond to which email. So depending on the level of expertise required. So if it's like distributing information to members, then that could be, you know, the internal team that actually handles the email. But if it's on sponsorships, then that could be a person that is a vice president and that needs to handle the email. And shared workload, I think this enhances the responsibility. So each email, it's clear who should be the one responsible to answer these emails, so that we can refrain from, you know, just having emails sitting in the mailbox and then for a couple of days. And I would say, I think a common term that I've learned throughout the course, and also through like research, is I think there's something called the SLA, which is a service level agreement. I don't think this actually involves in this context, but I would say I think in the real world, people use service level agreements where they actually track, I would say, how like the first contact or the first response time, and when a case is closed. In this case, and I think by implementing such measures would better like alert everyone on the team that this email's been sitting for a long time and it has passed our threshold of responding. And this would just overall improve streamlining the whole communications process. Next slide, I'm going to talk about the audience. So I think the audience, I would say, as an open source project, I would say the intention for open source projects would be to serve those that may not have the money or the resources that actually to implement such like using a commercial product, for example. And I would say that education, so like RSO, student groups, those that have maybe a group of people serving a larger group of people, I would say is more suited for the first phase. And also the first phase, we need to develop a lot of features, so we need to get a constant feedback. And I would say by student groups, there are less impact as compared to maybe a business or an enterprise. And so education as a start would be more suitable than directly going to these small, medium-sized businesses or the enterprise. And later on, going to these small, medium-sized businesses and enterprise would be the next option. And also some enterprise that actually has the money, I believe the open source project, we can offer a paid version. But the paid version would be to set up hosting, to reduce their efforts of maintaining the platform. And I believe there are a lot of companies that are actually willing to pay for this to save their IT department a lot of time and maintain the platform. But this is not to say that since this is an open source project, the source code and everything is going to be available online. It's going to be free. But there's this alternative version where we could, along the way, we could just for sustainability purposes, if no one in the open source world is like to take on this project, maybe we could hire someone full time to work on this project, just based on the funds from the SMB and enterprise side of things. The next slide I'm going to talk about is development. So for project management, I think based on the different ways, different methods, I think the one that I've selected is Scrum. And I think one thing that Scrum offers is sprints, which I think is a really cool idea. And by just having things set in a 2-week deadline and how to move forward, and just to do everything by sprints, I think just in the initial phase, and also moving on to when we're more stable, when we start releasing more stable versions, I think it allows us to keep track of better and making sure that the project can better, not just fixing the bugs, but also developing new features along the way. And I think the code base is going to be stored in GitHub. And one of the things that I think GitHub offers as compared to maybe Bitbucket would be the visibility. So since I believe GitHub has the most users around the world, we can attract more users to use our platform just by using GitHub. I believe many people actually use GitHub to search for discover new projects. And just by people clicking on the star button on the project can make other people aware of the project as well. So just for visibility's sake, I think GitHub would be the best solution here. But also GitHub has, I think, has documentation built in. It also has the boards, which could be simple issue tracking. Just for I think it's just integrated already, and also everyone is familiar with it, so GitHub would be suitable for it. And documentation, there's a project that's called README, which I think it's just, even though GitHub has, I would say, everything built in, but README just has more functionality in terms of adding a lot of the features to the documentations. And I think the README should include things like if they were to self-host this service, the instructions of doing so from step 1 to actually connecting the service to the Google API is what I'm thinking here. Yeah. And this is the end of my presentation.
Thank you. That was very good. I like how you kind of crafted this thing from a need very practical need, again, like Amal did, that you have, and then you want to be able to build this thing out, and you're kind of thinking forward to where you might find a place to, put this in the world, make it sustainable, so you have like an enterprise version or some paid version, and then you have versions for your smaller groups and things like that. One thing I would be careful of, though, is the security. When you're dealing with something that has like an email security aspect, like we have an entire department at the university, the IT department, where they have a very strict protocols for security. And so any organization you'd be working with has that same sort of system. And so, one thing you might think about is to say, how would we interact with those groups to make sure that we're up to their standards? Because they'll adopt standards every once in a while. Maybe every 6 months they'll review them. Different organizations have different standards. So you really have to work with those organizations to make sure that you can, that the plugin would be seamless for an organizational user or whatever.
Yes, thank you for providing this feedback. Actually, in my paper, I actually have a dedicated section to address the security concerns. And one of the things that initially I didn't think of adding a paid version either. But the reason why I added this paid version was actually so that the money can go to maybe hiring a independent third-party firm that actually can go through the code-based security. And also, I think the open source, I think by having the code base open source, I think it had the added, I think there's this added benefit of having the community, maybe like the security experts in the field. They can review this code and they can make their suggestions by creating pull requests if they ever to see a security issue. But I would say that the paid version, the idea of the paid version actually came from just the security concerns alone. Yeah.
Well, it's very good. Thank you for the presentations, both of you. Anything else before we go? Anything you wanted to add, or?
No, thank you. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so thank you both. Good luck with your paper. I don't know if you got my email about submitting the paper and everything, but
yes, I received the email. Yes, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. And so then that's all you have to do for the rest of the term is to submit your paper, and look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh.
Bye.